Welcome to the Flight Levels. Last week we covered the built-in safety features of the National Airspace System in Newark Approach Down Part 1. Today we are going to cover the specifics of what is going on at Newark Approach. Why did this redesign of airspace happen? And how did it get so screwed up? This is Newark Approach Down Part 2. Let's get to it. We're going to start with the automation design of our national airspace system. The meat and potatoes of air traffic control in the United States begins at the Air Route Traffic Control Center. The main system running each center is called ERAM, which is short for En Route Automation Modernization. ERAM and its subsystems manage the main flight plan information for any flight in the national airspace system. You can think of ERAM as the central nervous system of the NAS. It shares information with all of the systems that need information. Air route traffic control centers can work independently. At the same time, in dense metropolitan areas where there is a high density of traffic, we have TRACONs, or Terminal Radar Approach Control Facilities. TRACONs run on their own unique system called STARS, or Standard Terminal Automation Replacement System. Don't get the STARS system confused with a standard terminal arrival or STAR flown when approaching your destination. Are you keeping up with all of the acronyms? In limited circumstances, STARS is capable of running independently. Though on a normal basis, STARS relies on ERAM for flight plan information. This relationship is described when we say a particular TRACON is hosted by an air route traffic control center. Though STARS receives flight plan information from ERAM, STARS utilizes its own independent system of communication and surveillance. What that means is each TRACON has its own radio transmitters and receivers to talk to aircraft. A TRACON may coincidentally use the same ADS-B towers and radars as a center, but it has its own direct line to each surveillance source. If there were some kind of problem at the hosting center, neither communications nor surveillance would be affected at the TRACON. Only flight plan information would be affected. Now that we have a baseline understanding of the architecture of a TRACON, let's take a look at some of the specifics of how New York TRACON worked until mid-2024. The TRACON is physically located a few miles east of John F. Kennedy Airport in Westbury, New York. Its airspace essentially covered the greater New York City area, including the major airports of JFK, LaGuardia, Newark, Islip, Teterboro, and Westchester County. The New York STARS is still hosted by the New York Air Route Traffic Control Center. Since New York TRACON covered a relatively large area, it had several ADS-B towers as well as several radars providing surveillance coverage. It also had several radio transmitters and receivers throughout the area. All of these towers and radars fed into the TRACON building in Westbury. A benefit of having so many surveillance sources and radio towers is redundancy. If a single radio transmitter had an issue, it would have been relatively simple to work around with another one. Same thing with a radar outage. There may be some area impacted, but it likely would not be a huge issue since there were other radars that overlapped. As far as automation is concerned, this was a pretty good setup. Unfortunately, being located in Westbury, New York, the FAA has always had a difficult time recruiting new controllers to live and commute on Long Island. Between the cost of living and the commute, it is also busy airspace to work. In an effort to reduce the burden of staffing at New York TRACON, the sectors west of the Hudson River overlying New Jersey would be transferred to neighboring Philadelphia TRACON. These sectors would be physically worked in Philadelphia, but would have the name Newark Approach. For those of you in the Philadelphia area, let me know in the comments if it is much cheaper to live near Philadelphia than it is on Long Island. Does the FAA's logic to move some positions to Philadelphia make sense? Okay, so this idea sounds simple, right? Just install some new terminal controller workstations in the building in Philadelphia and plug them in, then voila! Well, not so fast. As we've covered, each workstation needs to have a physical STARS computer, surveillance input, and access to radio transmitters and receivers. Philadelphia TRACON already had their own STARS hardware, so perhaps that could have been used. But the Philly STARS did not have access to the ADSB and radar sites that the Newark sectors had been using, nor did Philly have access to the radio transmitters and receivers. Okay, so then the FAA must have connected the radio transmitters, radars, and ADSB towers to the building at Philly TRACON, right? Well, of course they did. Newark Approach began operating from the Philadelphia location in 2024. But get ready for how they connected it. You would think the FAA would have adapted the Newark sectors into the Philadelphia STARS computer. You would think the existing radio transmitters and receivers would be run to Philadelphia. You would also think the surveillance sources would be run to Philadelphia. You would think they would want the existing redundancy New York Approach already had. You would be wrong. The FAA left the lines between the surveillance sources and radios and New York TRACON. They also kept the Newark sectors in the adaptation of the New York STARS computer. A single data line was run from the building in Westbury to Philadelphia to what are called remote TCWs, or remote terminal control workstations. What this means is the Newark controllers and their displays are physically in the Philadelphia TRACON building, but the STARS computer and all of the other systems are still in Westbury. The controllers are essentially just working in some extra space they found in the Philadelphia TRACON building. They may as well have been working in a random office park in Scranton. Take a look at the most recent standard operating procedures of Philadelphia TRACON. It specifically explains that the FAA transferred control of the Newark area, now called Area C, from New York TRACON to the Philadelphia TRACON on July 28, 2024. It was agreed that no procedures will change. Personnel will perform their job the same way that they did leading up to the cutover, just now from a different location. Area C continues to operate with their legacy directives, including the N90, which is New York TRACON, SOP, which is not yet incorporated into this new SOP. Note, this document was written about 90 days after the Newark Approach controllers moved. As of when I made this video, it has been 9 months since the Newark sector moved. As of today, New York TRACON still has not updated its SOP document since February 2024. I'll let you decide for yourself how this looks. Supposedly, there are now plans to actually integrate the Newark sectors into the Philadelphia STARS system the way it should have been from the beginning. Done properly, the terminal control workstations will be connected to the Philly STARS. The Philly STARS will also have its own inputs from the radars and ADSB towers around Newark and Teterboro. With this proper adaptation, no single line failure would take down all data. As I talked about in part 1, there are many politicians screaming, "It's critical that we build an all-new air traffic control system." I hope I have shown the air traffic control system in the United States has some specific issues. However, its fundamental building blocks provide an exceptionally safe environment. In the meantime, I feel terrible for the thousands of passengers impacted by the equipment outages in Newark. The extreme size of the inconvenience to all of these travelers is unbelievable. I also feel terrible for the air traffic controllers thrown into the middle of this controversial airspace reconfiguration. The controllers are just trying to do their jobs. Today, we went into details about what actually failed at Newark Approach. Controllers changed their work location from Westbury, New York to Philadelphia. To accommodate the move, a single data line was used to connect remote terminal control workstations to the New York STARS computer. When that data line had issues recently, all radio and surveillance data was lost without any redundancy. Hopefully, the Philadelphia STARS computer will soon actually integrate the Newark sectors along with the respective surveillance and radio sources. Unfortunately, even with those engineering changes, the reputation for air traffic control in that area will be tarnished for decades. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have been impacted by any of the air traffic control outages in New York. Are you planning any summer travel with a layover in the New York City area? Share this with any of your friends who may also want to learn techniques to be a better pilot in the National Airspace System. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and head over to flight-levels.com. Remember, don't just fly, climb to the flight levels.